You know that feeling? You get a gorgeous, colorful Gerbera daisy as a gift, and it's just stunning. But then, a few weeks later, it starts to look a little sad. It's a super common story, but what if you could change the ending? Well, today we're gonna crack the code on how to turn that temporary gift into a flowering friend that sticks around for years. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Plant expert Anastasia Remeslo absolutely nails it here. People think these are disposable plants, but that's just a myth. And with the know-how we're about to cover, you're gonna bust that myth and enjoy those amazing blooms for a long, long time. So to get started, we're gonna focus on the absolute must-haves. I like to call it the core care trio. It's all about light, water, and soil. If you can get these three things right, trust me, you are 90% of the way to success. First up, let's talk light. This is a big one. To get those fantastic flowers, your Gerbera needs at least 6 hours of bright, but not direct sunlight. An east-facing window is kind of the sweet spot. It gets all that lovely, gentle morning sun. What you want to avoid is that harsh, scorching afternoon sun, because that will just fry the leaves. All right, now for what is probably the trickiest part of Gerbera care, watering. Your plant starts wilting, the leaves are all droopy. What does it mean? Is it thirsty or is it literally drowning? They can look almost identical, which is so confusing. So how in the world do you tell the difference?
Well, here is the dead simple way to figure it out. Before you do anything, you have to check the soil. Just stick your finger about an inch down. If it's wilting but the soil feels wet and soggy, you've got an overwatering problem. If it's wilting and the soil is totally bone dry, then yeah, it's thirsty. The key is to let the soil tell you what's going on.
And here is maybe the most important tip of all, straight from our expert, Anastasia. When you do water, aim for the soil only. Try not to splash the leaves. And whatever you do, never, ever pour water right into the middle of the plant. That's called the crown. That spot is super vulnerable to rot, and keeping it dry is your best defense against a ton of future problems. And the last piece of the foundation puzzle is the soil. Gerberas absolutely hate having wet feet, so good drainage is everything. You can whip up the perfect home for them with this super easy mix. Just grab some all-purpose potting soil, mix in an equal amount of perlite to keep it nice and airy, and then an equal amount of compost for some good nutrients. It's the perfect recipe for happy roots. All right, so you've got the foundation totally locked in. Now we're gonna level up. Let's talk about the little tweaks that take your plant from just surviving to really thriving and putting out that incredible show of flowers that we all love. Think about it. Making flowers takes a ton of energy. So you've got to give your plant some food. During the growing season, which is spring and summer, you'll want to feed it every 2 to 4 weeks. Just look for any balanced, water-soluble fertilizer that's made for flowering plants. This is the fuel for the flower factory. Now, this might surprise you, but Gerberas are a little fussy about temperature. They actually prefer it on the cooler side, somewhere between 40 and 70 degrees Fahrenheit. And here's the kicker. If it gets too hot, they can actually stop blooming altogether. So if your plant isn't flowering, check to make sure it's not in a really hot, stuffy spot. You know, for a lot of houseplants, we stress about humidity, right? Well, for Gerberas, there's something way more important: airflow. These guys can get a fungal disease called powdery mildew. And your #1 best defense against seeing that yucky white powder on the leaves is just making sure there's good air circulation around the plant. Don't cram it into a tight corner. Okay, so your plant is healthy, it's happy, it's getting everything it needs, awesome. Now what? How do we keep it that way? This next bit is all about the simple, regular things you can do to keep those gorgeous flowers coming back again and again. Real quick, before we get to the most important maintenance tip, it's just cool to know that not all Gerberas are the same. You've got the classic single flower look, but then you have these incredible crested ones that are so full of petals you can't even see the center. Pretty amazing, right? Okay, back to keeping your plant looking its best. So here it is, the million-dollar question. You've got a beautiful bloom, but it's starting to fade. How do you tell your plant, hey, I'd like another one, please? How do you send that signal? The answer, and your new best friend, is a technique called deadheading. It's so simple, but so effective. The moment a flower starts to look a little tired, don't just pull the top off. You want to follow its stem all the way down to the base of the plant and snip it off right there. This tells the plant, okay, stop putting energy into making seeds and put all that power into making a brand new flower for me. It's a total game changer. Now, you're probably not the only one who thinks your Gerbera is a snack. You'll want to keep an eye out for these little critters. Just make a habit of checking the leaves every now and then, especially on the undersides. If you do spot any of these uninvited guests, a simple spray with some insecticidal soap usually does the trick.
Look, even with the best care in the world, sometimes plants send out an SOS. So in our last section here, we're going to do a quick lightning round to solve the most common problems you might run into.
Okay, first up, and this is probably the biggest one people deal with, yellowing leaves. You look over one day and your nice green plant is starting to look a little yellow? What's the deal? I'd say 9 times out of 10, the culprit is overwatering. Remember what we said at the very beginning? Check the soil. Yellow leaves are your plant's way of screaming that its roots are too wet. You gotta make sure that soil has a chance to dry out a bit and that your pot has good drainage holes.
Here's another one that can be super frustrating. Your plant looks healthy, it's got plenty of green leaves, but nothing, no flowers. Why is it holding out on you? The answer is almost always light. It's that simple. A Gerbera daisy that isn't getting enough sun just doesn't have the energy to produce flowers. Move it to your brightest spot, remember that 6-hour rule, and you should start to see some action pretty soon. And what if you see that telltale white, dusty stuff on the leaves? Now you know exactly what that is, powdery mildew. And you also know what causes it, right? It's a direct result of poor air circulation and getting the leaves wet when you water. It's a crystal clear sign to give it more space and be more careful with that watering can. So when you boil it all down, this is really it. This is your cheat sheet for Gerbera success. Give it that bright morning sun. Water the soil, never the crown. Snip off those old flowers to get new ones. Let it breathe with good airflow. Give it some fresh soil in the spring, and let it have a little rest with less water in the winter. You master these points, and you've got the formula for a happy plant. So there you have it. You've just learned how to take a plant that most people treat as disposable and turn it into a long-term, beautiful companion. You now hold the secret to years and years of that bright, cheerful color. So, feeling pretty good, right? The only question left is, what plant are you going to master next?